Okay, 6 o'clock, so meeting order. Southside. This big.
Keep it going. Approval of the agenda.
Well, I didn't memorize it while I was copying it, unfortunately. Pass that down, Brad. Can you sign in?
You do it by hand?
So you had a chance to look over the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Jim made a motion. Is there a second?
Second it.
Pat seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposition, none. Approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Assume everybody's had a chance to glean those over. Is there a motion to approve?
Make motion.
Brian, is there a second? Dan, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposition, none. Number 4, election of officers. Chairperson, is there a motion to elect a chairperson or anybody that wants to be chair? Make your argument.
It's usually working pretty well the way it is.
Yeah. I won't say it, the meeting's live. I'm fine being the chairperson, if that's all right with everybody.
I'll say.
If somebody wants to make a motion, I say
I'll make a
chair.
motion.
Okay. What was your motion, Jim?
You stay where you're at.
Okay,
The chairperson.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Jeff, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposition, none. Vice chairperson.
We don't know who that is.
Vice chair.
I make
Okay,
a
well,
motion to leave it as is.
Okay, we have a motion for Pat Fay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Brian, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. 2022-2023 budget review.
So if for Jake and Tony, if you guys are looking at your electronic copies, we're going to start with page 1 of 8. We're only going to go to page 2 of 8. So everything else is just kind of extra stuff that prints out. I won't make that file for the packet here. But, so looking at the first page, it's in landscape orientation. In the first column, we have the actuals for fiscal year end June 30th of 2021. And then the estimated, where we estimate things will be at the end of the current fiscal year, is in the middle column, and then the far right column contains the proposed budget. The first page deals with revenues. So we start off with the current fund balance to $100,000 or $244,067. We keep, I'm sorry, total of $344,067. Currently, we, on the advice of the state, we've been keeping a portion of that in the assigned fund balance and a portion of that in the restricted and committed column. The $100,000 being just money that we were setting aside for a rainy day, and the rest of it being committed to maintenance contracts and things like that. So throughout the actuals for the last fiscal year, you can see what revenues came in, and then go across for what we're predicting they're going to be. And then finally the budgeted for the upcoming fiscal year in June 30th of 2023. So maybe a slide on all the way down to the bottom. That's not very good. So if you go across, I didn't realize this cut it off. I really should check the things out. So the first is the total fund balance there, that 344,067, and then we have the wire line surcharge at 79,687, And then we have the wireless surcharge at 152,208. And you can see it's looking like it'll be somewhat steady for this year. Now we're predicting a downturn in the wireline. The way this is kind of going, the trend is that wireline revenues are going down as people shut down home phones and things like that. And the wireless revenue tends to go up as people increase their use of mobile devices and new kids get cell phones and all that kind of stuff. So that's all money that comes from the $1 surcharge. We get the entire $1 on wireline stuff, and we get 63 or 67% of the wireless surcharge. The remainder of that is kept by the state to manage the overall statewide network for the next gen network. So, and then we have just some miscellaneous reimbursements that come in, a little bit of interest, miscellaneous grants and things that we receive, like the GIS grant that we do through the state that we get. We get that every 6 months. We get that, so that's been pretty successful. And then radios and pagers cost share. So that's kind of the revenue side of things. The first two columns there, the previous fiscal year, current fiscal year, for your reference, you can kind of see where things have been and where they're going. And I'll just go down the current budget proposal for the upcoming fiscal year and discuss what each item is and where we think it's going to be at for the next year. So the first amount is $35,000. That is money that we expend, that we pay to the comm center for database management, for the sort of things that I do for managing the 911 system, keeping the databases up to date, and that sort of thing. And that amount has been the same for a number of years, and we don't see any reason to change it this time. Promotion is what we use to publish. The 120 is promote for promotions and advertising is what we use to publish budgets and things like that. Next one. Oh, look, it's cut off completely. I can get an answer for you guys. I'll make sure you get a better copy before the next.
That's Jason's personal bonus.
Yeah, I wish. No. Yeah, let's do it. I'll let you do it.
Just guess.
We got the phone expense, 36,000. That's been remaining relatively constant, but we're hopeful. This amount we were told it was going to go away, and then it was discovered that the state didn't have the authority to make it go away at the current time, or the ability to take it over. If the state were to take over everybody's wireline 911 cost recovery cost, they would expend everything that they have in their fund and then some, and they could not do it. So this is really disproportionate. Kind of what's going on here is we're paying a lot for wireline call delivery, and we're paying almost nothing to the wireless companies for their call delivery. And so that, coupled with the fact that about 75% of all 911 calls are wireless calls, means that the per call cost of wireline is astronomically high statewide. And so there's discussions on the federal level about this. The FCC is looking to do something. There's some rulemaking that's in process. We're keeping an eye on that. But for the time being, we've got to maintain that in our budget. If it goes away because of either FCC action or state legislation, we'll be happy about that. But for right now, we have to maintain it. The $8,000 is for 911 sign expense. This is the expense we spend in the rural parts of the county to put up 911 signs. When that was originally done and we moved away from the rural routes, that all came out of 911 surcharge, and it just has stayed there since then. So that's kind of what we spend, and that goes for both the street markers and the house markers in the rural areas. And then we get into some different repair and maintenance stuff. We got telephone, believe the telephone repair and maintenance is the $2,000. We have $40,000. We use that for various maintenance agreements for softwares and equipment maintenance agreements. All the maintenance agreements come out of that line. And then the other one is radio repair and maintenance. We, looking back over the history, we've never spent the 12,500. I think we will be looking to probably do a battery refresh on law enforcement radios. I've been talking about that for a while, just haven't done it. But their radios, they get a lot of discharge cycles daily, and they lose capacity and they lose functionality. So when you get to be 3 and 4 years old, which these radios are all of that, probably get closer to 5, you need to really kind of do a battery refresh. So we'll be looking to do that in the current budget year. Moving down the line, we have consulting fees and services. You'll see that last year we spent quite a bit in that area as it related to the radio project. It was 911 that paid for Ray Freeman's services. We are winding that down, so the amount that we expect to pay him is much less. So we think that we're going to be at $6,500 for the current year, and it seems wise to keep a little bit of something in that line item, so that if we need to reach out to him for a small project or some problem that we're having, we've got something to do that with. Moving down, we have kind of the big number here, the $113,680. This is for communications tower and equipment. This is the line item where we will begin paying for the maintenance agreement on the 6 radio system build out that we did. So in fiscal year 2021, we use that as a contingency fund to just grease the wheels of anything that was needed for the radio project. That's where we purchased things like the fire base station, fire and EMS base station radios that were kind of missed in the equipment count. My fault. We didn't think about it, but that was used for that, and we used it for the BDA for the courthouse, and we used it for the network management terminal that we added to the project. So there's just some of these things that that money was used for. We don't expect to really have much in the way of expenses. We're going to have some tower side expenses to put some safety equipment at the towers and things like that this year. Then that will put the button on all of that stuff, and then we'll start paying for the maintenance agreement out of the next budget year. So that's where we kind of expect that to be. Keeping $20,000 in the portable, mobile and portable radios fund. This is also where we buy pagers out of, which is the bulk of what that money gets spent on, is replacement pagers as needed. And then telephone equipment. The call processing equipment in the comm center is all of 8 years old, which Dalton can attest to is a long time to keep IT equipment in service. So it is past end of life currently. It's running fine. We're not having any issues with it, knock on wood. And we pay time and materials on anything that's needed on that. But we are starting the investigation for replacing that equipment in the next budget year. So we've got, we're in discussions with Raycom, who has a statewide contract for the 911 call processing equipment for a statewide shared services model. And we're talking to Motorola, who also has a solution. And so we'll start that stuff off. And the state shared services solution is a really strong candidate just because of the cost, and there's a lot of PSAPs that have gone with it. But we will do our due diligence and make sure that that's right for our comm center. Then we have these, what you see is $5,000 in the upcoming budget year. Previously was 77 and 72,000. That's for other equipment. These are other projects that we've done. We just have kind of a placeholder of about 5,000 for some minor expenses that might come up, IT equipment, things that might need to be done on a small scale. you know, just to keep that kind of fund going. The server replacement project, for example, is what will be, is what the $72,000 part of that will go to. And then anything that's left from that, which I think we'll have some left, will remain in the fund. Because the 911 fund is a separate fund, so the money just goes back. So all in all, we're looking at a current expenditure for the current fiscal year of $323,300. And then because we have the outstanding maintenance agreements for the radio system, which, as you can see, is a considerable amount every year, we essentially have the entire fund committed in a sense for future payments. And so it's beneficial for state record gathering if we keep that in the non-spendable, restricted, committed category. Doesn't mean that if we need to do a budget amendment, we can't use it. But it just means that we've got a plan for that money, and we've got projects that it's going towards or expenses that it's planned for, so that when the state starts looking at money that's sitting around in 911 funds around the state, they understand what that money is there for. It's not just sitting around uncommitted and unrestricted, which is kind of the bad thing. So that's kind of the gist of it. I hope I wasn't over explaining anything. And if anybody has any questions, I'll entertain them now.
On 23, the reestimate shows 9,000. Is that because we didn't have a contract this current year?
Yeah, so normally, and yeah, you're right, like the actual budget that we passed is a lot higher. But I don't anticipate we're going to spend much out of that, because the final acceptance of the project isn't done yet, and benefited use, which is what starts our warranty period of 1 year on the radio system, didn't start till October of last year. So at the time we did the budget, we thought it was going to start, in the spring of 2021. Didn't happen to the fall, so that pushed that payment into the next fiscal year. So that's what's going on there.
Any other questions? All right, moving on. 911 CPE replacement.
Okay, I kind of covered that, I think, already in the budget discussion there, but yeah, we'll be investigating that. That's what we budgeted. I was hoping to get at least a preliminary number from Raycom on what our project might cost, but they just weren't able to deliver that before the budget was due. The unique thing about us that not all PSAPs kind of have to deal with is we take extensions off of the courthouse and the city's phone system, so that the comm center can answer the police department and the sheriff's lines, and that adds a level of complexity to the project that other PSAPs don't always have. Oftentimes they might have a direct number that comes into their CPE that's from the outside world, instead of being extensions off of other phone systems. So it should be pretty straightforward, because they're just analog extensions that come in, as long as the CPE vendor knows what they're dealing with. It shouldn't be too bad. And the keystrokes for programming the CPE are already known, because they make the systems work today. So we're moving forward cautiously, but hopefully that doesn't add too much problem. And then the way that the state system will work, or the state shared services, is that they maintain the server portion, and then we have a small equipment. It's still considerable, but we have the equipment footprint in our room that it contains switching equipment, and we have the computers on the desks, and we have connections into the county and the city phone system, but we wouldn't have the servers on site to maintain. Those would be maintained by the state, and we would have access to our little portion of the database that we need to update to make our stuff run. There is some benefits to that. The DPS has a mobile command vehicle that's got both an IS6 radio, 2 radio consoles, and 2 Zetron phone positions that are part of the shared services. So if we needed to evacuate our PSAP, there's a potential we could call that vehicle in. And once it showed up, we could actually at least get our 911 calls on that. And it would be the exact same interface that our dispatchers are used to dealing with. Admin calls would be more of a struggle. That'd be more dependent on what's still operational. Maybe the electricity's on, but the building's uninhabitable or something. It would just depend on what the equipment looked like. But that would be like one benefit that we would see by going with the shared services. It is kind of I would say it's removing more barriers to consolidation between PSAPs. So that's something to consider as we do it. I think that we're going to find that it's much more cost effective than anything else that we're going to find out there. We'll see how it goes. But that'll be the next kind of big project that we'll be looking to do for the comm center. So.
Okay, set public hearing date, which looks like it's already been set.
Yeah, so the suggestion is that it's February 17th at 6 p.m. Cautiously optimistic we'll get a quorum by that date, and that gives us some wiggle room should we have some sort of an issue and need to set a second date to redo something that we didn't do properly. We can still get it done before the middle of, was it March?
February 28th
February 28th now?
for me.
Oh, for you. Okay. So it gives us a little bit of a cushion. I think 9/1 is by March 15th.
The 17th is on a Thursday night.
It is. We were looking at Wednesday and there was some confusion in the emails because we kind of moved that. But Sarah's got a family obligation that came up on that Wednesday. So
I didn't know if we had.
Yeah.
Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
she's got to make it to Jesus Day. So that's the recommendation.
New business. Review and approve server array.
Okay, so our servers are what are they now? 6 years old?
Yeah,
At least.
7 going on.
Yeah. You guys will probably, those that have been on the board for a while will remember that we did a virtual server project. But it's probably been 7 years ago, maybe. Yeah. Where we virtualized all the servers for the comm center with high availability, meaning that there's two physical boxes, and then later on we added the third disaster recovery box that's located off-site, and we replicate to that so that if we ever had to leave, our data's there, and we could spin up servers and do some recovery of our system. And what high availability means is that the virtual servers, multiple servers can run on one box virtually. And the high availability means that any one box can take over for the whole system, for the whole array. If we have a hard drive failure, not hard drive, but if we have some sort of failure, equipment failure, motherboard goes out, something like that, then one box can take over all the servers for the other box. Otherwise, they're kind of load managed and spread between the two. And so what that system involves a storage device called SANS. We upgraded that in the last budget year. And the next piece that we're working on is to upgrade the server. So Dalton and I just were talking the other day, and I think if we upgrade our server, the server array, which would involve 3 new hosts, 2 here and 1 off-site, and we do the CPU replacement project. By and large, all of the equipment that runs the comm center has been replaced in the last couple of years between the radio project and other IT projects that Dalton has worked on for us. So we gathered 2 quotes for server replacement. We did not seek a quote from Arion this time around. They did our storage replacement, and it didn't go as smoothly as we would have liked, and so we decided to try out some other IT vendors for this project and see how it goes. So we contacted ICE Technologies. They are Computer Concepts merged with ICE Technologies, which was bought out by them, so they're just across the road here, and then we have coverage one. Additionally, the IT department spec'd out servers just to make sure that equipment-wise, the equipment being spec'd and the cost of that equipment was reasonable. And then we kind of look at, and it was. So Dalton, I will let you kind of.
Yeah, you want me to start with the,
We can go to ICE technology, I guess. That's one I have in front.
okay.
Or
So-
whichever one's easiest for you.
Yeah, actually, I'll probably start with Converge one.
Okay.
That's the bigger one.
Okay.
You want it up on the screen? You guys want to see it? You guys see-
They all got copies of it.
Oh, you guys have copies? Okay. So the one that came from Converge one, obviously you can see is a heck of a lot more expensive. Part of that's due to the name brand of the server itself. It's a Cisco server. Honestly, it's hard to quote the same brand through multiple manufacturers due to competition quoting. So if one person quotes out a server brand, anybody else who goes and get the quote is going to have a higher quote no matter what. Doesn't matter what they do, how much cost they eat, just how the quoting works. So we try to get multiple brands quoted when we do these server quotes. Looking at this, the first part of it's just like the software that runs everything inside the machine. That's your VMware, the load balancing software, all that good stuff. That's what the $6,000 covers. The hardware, it's the server itself, all your cables, that good stuff. Any of the mounting devices, everything's included in that. And then the professional services is just the install itself. I see they did include Cisco maintenance. That was for 3 years, I believe. 5 years, which is just basically the warranty, which that would include parts and labor and everything to fix them. Looking at this quote.
Can I speak that for a second?
Yeah.
We asked, the kind of standard is for 3 years, but we consider end of life on IT equipment to be about 5 years. And then when we get to that 5-year mark, Dalton and I start having the conversation like, oh, we're at the 5 years, what should we do with it? How's it going? Do we want to extend it a little bit? And so then, sometimes we'll buy an additional year or a couple of years of service and maintenance on the equipment if it's available. But I like to just get that 5-year maintenance up front. It saves us money when we do it that way generally.
Yeah.
And it just takes care of it for that first 5 years. And, we really don't have to worry about recurring costs with that. So, that's kind of the thinking behind the 5 years.
As far as the insides of the server itself, like the physical components that make it run, it's pretty much apples to apples with the other company, ICE Technologies, we quoted with. So that brings, looks like everything on this to a total of $56,000 for the Converge one quote. Let's pull over to the ICE Technology one now. Okay, so ICE Technologies looks like they came in almost half the price. Now we did quote out HP. We're generally a Dell shop here, but anymore when you get a piece of equipment like a computer or a server, the only difference is with the cases. So everything on the inside is the same as the other one for the most part. Has everything we would need, but they're just coming in at a heck of a lot lower price point. So you can see we have $24,000, $25,000 just for the equipment. And I know on the other one it was around 40 just for equipment itself. They're pretty reasonable, and apples to apples with other company on their install fee, maybe a little bit higher, but they're coming in around $10,000 for that. When you purchase a server, I believe it does come with the maintenance agreement on that. We did ask for that.
Yeah, I checked with Schwer's today, I think.
Okay.
I just verified because it wasn't real easy to find it in the quote, but he did point out where it's for 5 years of maintenance.
Okay, cool. So that answered my question there, where we have 5 years of maintenance on that quote right there.
The other thing we asked these vendors, is we asked them for completely turnkey operation. Dalton and Ben have their hands full with, all the other stuff that goes on for the county. And, while I think they're fully capable of implementing the server project, installing it, moving the data, moving the servers and all of that stuff, this just gets it done by hiring them to do it. They make it all work, and then they hand us the keys, and we kind of drive and maintain the car over the next 5-6 years or whatever. That we have the equipment in service, so that's kind of what we asked of the vendors. Requested the quotes, so.
Any questions about anything?
But do you like
You
the
want a motion?
Cadillac or do you like the local company?
I like to go up and be honest with you.
Okay.
So Dalton and I both agree here that our recommendation would be to approve the ICE Technologies quote. And give them a try and see how things go. They're a company that don't have firsthand knowledge with, but the equipment seems to be the same. And what we really liked about Ariane in the past is they were really stellar on their service. They charged for it, and we paid a little bit of a premium for it, but they were really stellar at taking care of the project and project management and really delivering the finished product. We never really had to worry about that. And that was a much more of an uphill struggle with the sands storage replacement that we did last year. And so that's kind of why we decided to, I guess, give them a rest on this project and look elsewhere. So.
All right, full business.
So I think we need a
I need a
motion.
motion.
Oh, okay.
And
I'll make a motion. Go to approve local.
Is there a second? Brian and Jason, all those in favor of the second quote, the lower one, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Motion passes.
Use Brad for the second.
I did.
Thank you.
I thought it was you.
I just said.
I just
lie.
Brad.
Oh,
I just said, yeah.
okay, moving on. Full business.
Wireline cost recovery. I think I pretty much covered this already, so
You
I
did?
tend to do that. So any questions about that? I don't want to rehash the old stuff there. Okay, District Radio project.
It works. We're done.
By and large, from the end user standpoint, we are. All the pieces are pretty much in place. All of the paging transmitters are up. All of the radios have been deployed. Everything from the end user standpoint is completed. We're still working, Ray and I are still working with Motorola to just cross some of the T's, dot the I's, take care of some of that kind of final stuff, make sure things are buttoned up. We have a few things to do on our end, like deploying the safety equipment to the tower sites and things like that. And we just haven't gotten to that quite over the finish line situation yet, but we're working with Motorola to hopefully get there. So
Then we'll have a communications exercise.
yeah, absolutely.
We need to do that.
I'm down.
Okay.
I'm excited.
What's the status on that? Because I know there's a couple of departments that are still having issues with their base getting the antenna to work. I know in Glidden,
What?
the antenna on the base,
Okay.
if we open the door, it works fine. If we close the door, it won't work.
Yeah,
So-
thanks for reminding me about that. So
Yeah,
there's some, I've got a quote for just kind of in general, kind of run of the mill, what it would cost to install an exterior antenna on any buildings that are having a problem. It's an estimate, because every installation is going to be different. The amount of coax, the difficulty of the installation will be different.
Is the coax different on that than it would be what the old one was?
It probably would be. We want to
Because we
probably.
already are wired to go outside if you just.
Well, you want to keep your VHF, thanks, Dalton. You want to keep your VHF radio in service anyway, because
No.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
because your base radios are single band. So the VHF radio that you have at your
Run
station,
two antennas out this.
so the other antenna needs to stay there. We need to add an antenna.
Right.
Somebody's having issues. it was, in some applications, the indoor antenna is a really good solution. If you're close to a tower site, then you don't have any issues. If you have a metal building and you're 10 miles away and you put metal on the inside and the outside walls of your building,
Yeah,
you will experience issues.
welcome.
So I think that's what happened in Glidden. We have a few other departments that have marginal access with their radios. So 911, we're looking to see what will be the best solution.
Okay,
But I think probably ultimately it's to put an outdoor antenna on the building. That's just hasn't been, I guess, the cream hasn't risen to the top on that one. So, but thank you for reminding me about it because I kind of lost sight of it. So
yeah.
we'll get another
Okay.
look at that and see what we can do about it.
Right.
Any other issues that you know of though, on the other than that?
Are they gonna continue? I know you're doing the simulcast up at Freda Tower.
Yeah, so just to explain kind of what's going on there, is the outdoor and even residential in-building paging in Breda, I think was okay. But they were really struggling to get notifications within Snappy Popcorn, I think, and Toy Fire apparatus. So, that's the bulk of their daytime
Right.
fire response. So we thought that there could be an issue with that. So we kept the Freda Tower intact. We call it the Freda site, but it's really
Sure.
closer to Mount Carmel. But that's on a rural water tower outside of Mount Carmel. And so what we did was the sheriff's repeater was newer than the fire repeater. So what we had First Wireless do is reprogram the sheriff's repeater to act as a paging repeater. We added a device called a store and forward device. And all that does is it listens for Breda's tones. And when it hears Breda's tones, it records the message, it records the page related with that transmission. And then as soon as it's done, after a short delay, it retransmits.
Yeah, repeat.
And so departments that get paged with Breda at the same time are going to have instances where they're getting the page twice. But it's that redundancy to make sure that Breda's able to get there.
And I understand all that, but I get people asking me why they do the whole litany of all of them a second time around. Can they just, because when you first did it, you were just doing Breda. First started out, you were just toning Breda's EMS and fire, and now it's repeat of everybody's
When we do the
in the morning test.
test. Yeah.
Yeah,
It just, whether or not we set it off separately or together. Before, when we were doing Breda separately, we were still using the old repeater in the old configuration.
okay,
So everything else could go off because they was all going off the simulcast.
right,
Now Breda is going off the simulcast now, but then they have this paging repeater that repeats that traffic.
wouldn't it be?
What's that?
We are not complaining
About,
having it repaid.
yeah.
No, and
It's just,
wouldn't it be simpler just to repage it directly for Breda's two tones?
repage it. What do you mean?
Well, because you're just repeating the original page over the Breda.
We're not doing it.
It does it automatically.
It's doing it automatically. It's just being recorded
Okay,
and rebroadcast.
right,
And then when it's being rebroadcast, it's only being rebroadcast off of the Freda Tower site.
exactly.
So maybe you hear it in Glidden, but I guarantee
Part of the
you-
time I get it,
don't hear it in-
part of the time
Yeah,
I don't. Sometimes it
Yeah.
just trails off. It just-
Yeah.
Because it's, well, I'm just, because
that's the explanation for it.
You
And
know,
I would love to sit here and say that we're going to remember to do Breda separately and do a separate test for Breda, but let's be honest, we're going to probably do that.
now this morning when I was driving back on Highway 30 around the curves in Ogden, when you repaged them in Breda, my pager went off. I picked up the signal. over
Right,
there.
because it records the entire page.
Right,
So it
but I
records
mean,
all
I
the
got
tones.
that
You
far,
got it
I got
in
that far
Ogden.
out distance wise, but yet some days you don't go, you can't get to Jefferson. I mean, it just
Yeah,
depends.
Yeah, you're sure it was the repage and not the page off the simulcast?
It was the second one. It
Okay.
was the first one. It did the first one too.
Oh, okay.
and it did the second one,
You ju-
which
I mean-
surprised me because,
VHF is funny like that. It'll go a really long ways. It just depends on
well,
where you're at. So,
I wasn't even trying because it was down on my belt and also started vibrating. I was doing the repage.
I'm sorry, it works too good.
Drive faster.
No,
I'll try to fix that.
I don't, I know why you're doing it because that's an area that's,
Yeah. So it's working out in Breda though. I mean,
Yes.
But,
Very well.
Good. so, yeah, yeah, the morning test page probably does repeat. We don't hear it in the comm center because we no longer have a receive on that channel. So the simulcast is strictly broadcast. So if you take an old radio and try to talk to us, you'll never get a hold of us on the fire channel, the old fire channel. So we don't hear it. So that's important for Breda to know because if it does go out or it doesn't go out, we're not gonna know. But
I can,
so I wanted it to go off in the morning test page because if it doesn't go off in the morning test page, somebody needs to let me know. Okay, so that we can have somebody look at it.
I can tell you the distance is a lot greater now off of the new tower when we started using it than before. Because when I'm traveling around, I can pick it up a lot farther out than what I used to. So that signal is going out there off of the Carroll Tower.
Sure. All right, any other questions?
Jason, have you done anything about maintenance on these radios yet? Getting all the bugs worked out?
If there's somebody that's having issues, they need to put it in an email.
I did that already.
Okay, was
I did.
off on medical?
I didn't know you were off on medical. I
I
sent it to both addresses and the old address came
Okay.
back and the new one stayed out.
okay. Resend it to me if you would.
Okay.
I was out for medical for about a month. So, and then I was restricted duty for about another month. So
We're getting tired of dead batteries.
we need dead batteries.
Well, yeah, the radios come on by themselves, even though they're on their
Oh,
master disconnect,
okay,
but they still come back on. I mean, Rip and I are in there every other day checking them now.
okay. I didn't know that was going on. I can try to look for the email too, but if you have it handy, send it to me and let me forward it on. I clearly missed it in my list of emails that I've been trying to get through.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? Second,
Second.
all those in favor? All right, opposition? Nay, okay.
Right, so it's